there is a task that is being implemented to get content of a secret file which is hidden within a server on which no one is allowed to access except those who are authorized to do so. We have been given the site URL and the path of the file within the project, and now we are assigned to do this task to break the website and get the file. Now let the hacking begin. Hello guys, welcome to another Pico CTF challenge. So I hope the introduction was a little bit cool, I think, but otherwise let me give you another brief description of what's happening here. So basically we have a challenge called Super Serial, on which, as I've described on the introduction, so there's a flag on which has been hidden within this thing, on which on the hints they say the flag is at this directory, right? So meaning from the directory from the index directory, we just have to go step back and then we should be able to access this flag. But the problem is that this thing has been how do I put it? Okay, the problem is that the path has been secured and then we cannot access it from anywhere else unless we are authorized to do so, on which you probably have to provide the login and your login name and then the password in order to get authorized and be able to access the thing. But in this case, we don't have an account on the system, so we need to find a way of breaking inside this thing. So we have the URL here, on which when you open URL, it takes us to the login page, on which this is the application that we need to attack. So as I've said, let the hacking begin. So now, as you can see, we have the sign in, we have the username and the password, on which we don't have either of them. We don't even have a link on which we can register so that we can have access to that thing, right? So from the hacker's perspective, what is the first thing that we do when we see a page like this? So I normally inspect the page, or let's view the source first. So let's view the page source, on which, let's see. So let me try to zoom in a bit. Okay, as you can see, it's just a normal HTML on which okay, when you sign in, you send the form to the index.php file, and then nothing exciting here. So another thing we can do is let's try to inspect this thing. I want to see what's happening when we refresh that. Like, I want to see the network traffic that we get the minute we load this page. Okay, so it seems like we just get the page, on which if you look at the response, it's just the page, and then if you look at the cookies, no, just have okay, and then nothing serious basically here, and then this is some bootstrap CSS file, and then some headers, okay, there's nothing really interesting on this one. So now let's look at the files, if there are any files. So the only, okay, this thing, oh, it only contains the bootstrap folder on which we pulled from here. So otherwise within the file structure there's nothing interesting. So let's go back to the page, the source code. Let's do the source and see what's happening. So we do have this thing, index.php file, on which we do know it's on the current directory, on which is this directory, and then we also have a CSS on which we can view the CSS. Let's see. So this is our CSS, this is our styling, on which I doubt there's a flag, because we already know where the flag is, right? So okay, so now our main interest now will be on this one. So what actually happens when we sign in? Because we can see that whatever we put as username and password, it gets submitted to this index.php file. So that means this file is the one that handles the authentication and authorization of a user. So it should make sense. Now we go and click this thing. Let's see if we can find what's happening. So when we try to click, as you can see, index.php, seems like this is the same page that we got, right? So there's nothing fancy about this thing. Basically it's like a form. So okay, now the question becomes, what is the next step? So with PHP, there is something called, there's an extension like this, PHPS, on which this one, once you add it to the file name, it reveals the source code, on which most of the sites are secured from this kind of a thing. You cannot see the source code just like that, but there are specific sites on which you can be able to do so. So we're gonna try to see if however this website is vulnerable to such a thing, on which it can expose the source code to us. So now we're gonna go back to this thing. So this is our index. We're just gonna add s to this thing and see if we can get what we can get the source code of this thing. So let's, then this is exactly what I was talking about. So as you can see, this is like a full source code of what's happening. The part that was hidden is this part, and then by just adding this thing, by adding the s at the end, it managed to reveal this part on which it was hidden. This part, most of the part here we were able to see, but the PHP code was hidden from us, on which we couldn't see what was happening. But now we can see the code. So let me try to zoom in a bit and see if I can. Okay, so now we do have some kind of we do have some required stuff on which we use this cookie.php, on which is another file. We will have to check it up later. So now we have another, okay, so we check is set on the post, meaning we check if however the username has been provided, and then also the password. And then from then, if it's provided, then we do the connection to the SQL library, and then username, we assign the username and password to whatever has been provided from the input file, from the request, and then we create an object of permission, meaning we do have an object of permission, right? And then we provide those username and password, and then we get the permission results, or yeah, and then from then, if permission result is cast, meaning from this object has a function called isCast, meaning which returns true or false, or is admin, which is returns true. That means either of them. If it's either of them, what we're gonna do, we're gonna set a cookie called login, and then URL encoded, and then base 64 encoded, and then serialize the response that we're gonna get from here, and then do some other stuff, set some time there, okay, and then header, location, authentication.php, another file that we're gonna pay attention to. So basically we've managed to understand everything that is happening within this page. So now we're gonna move on to the next part, on which, okay, so we do have two files on which we have to look at, right? We have cookies.php. Let's go there. So let's copy this thing, come here, paste it. Okay, I did not copy the right thing. Come copy this thing, come here, paste this thing. Oh, I forgot to add this thing, so I have to copy this thing basically. This thing is acting a bit slow now. I don't know what's happening. So it's called what? It's called cookie.php, on which it shows plain, because let's add the s where we see the source code of this thing. So we have another one called what? What is the name of that other one? What is it? The other one is called authentication. So we have another one called authentication.phps. Okay, fine. So now let's focus on the cookie one. So a cookie, actually what it does is that there's a class on which is the same class that we saw here. Okay, on which this class has two attributes, on which is username and password, and then there's a constructor there. And then we do have a function to string, on which it just returns this thing, and then function is a guest, on which these are the functions that have been called here. And then okay, let me try to zoom. Probably you can see problem. And yeah, and then another function called is admin, and then there's another if condition that checks if however we is set. Okay, that means it checks within the cookies if we have a cookie name called login. And then if however we have a cookie name called login, we're gonna do some try and catch thing here, on which we unserialize. Okay, for this, let me try to explain this part. So what is happening here is that, let's focus on this part first. So we say if this person is guest or admin, meaning we managed to log in, right? We're gonna set a cookie on which this cookie is gonna be called login. So now here we check if this browser or the current client within the browser, do we have a cookie called login? So if there's a cookie called login, we're gonna do this thing, right? So automatically, like through the mind of a hacker, we know that we will never pass this stage where like we create this thing and then we check whether we are guest, since we are not assigned, since we are not registered on the system. Meaning if however we try to provide the username and password, we will always fail because we don't know the part. But we realize something though. If we create our own cookie name called login and then try to create some serialization here, we can actually get something, right? So for example, let's try to do something. So let's stop on that part. So basically what I want to do is, okay, I don't know how I got there. Okay, yeah, so this is it. Let me check. So this is where we basically are. There's a lot of things that I have to close here. Let me try to close some of the things. Tabs. There's another tab here. I don't know what. Oh yeah, opens. Close tabs. Okay, yeah. So okay, yeah. Now we are good. And okay, so this is the part. So if I ever try to guess the username and password, I don't think we'll be able to go through. Because why? Because if you look at this thing, okay, permission, as you can see, this thing connects to the DB, right? And then from then we create a new permission on which permission is here, on which when we check this person is a guest or what, we also go through a list of what we have a query here on which checks whether we belong to the database or not, and whether we are assigned as well as an admin or a guest, on which obviously there is no way, since we have not registered to the system. Our main purpose is to hack the system, so we cannot expect the system to know us unless we were trying to use another person's credentials, on which in this case that's not the case. So now we're going to be moving on to the next part, on which will be okay. So we realize that if however we try to provide a password of, let's say, admin, and then also the username of admin and password of admin, and try to sign in, you see invalid login. So we get an invalid login, on which is this thing, meaning there was this condition that was we tried to get into this thing, whether meaning the system was trying to check whether we are a guest or an admin, and it realized we don't even belong to, we are not even either of them. Then it gave us this thing of invalid login. So now this part of trying to figure out the correct username and password, we'll just keep it. So now we're going to be moving to the part of creating this thing. So we're going to create a cookie on which will unserialize it, and then from then we'll try to see if however this thing can work. So let's try to understand this part, what is actually happening. So we first of all, what does this thing do? We URL decode this thing, whatever the value of the cookie is, and then we try to we decode it using base64, and then we unserialize this thing, and then from then we get a permission. So meaning this object, remember something, the thing that is supposed to be serialized here is what? Is this class called permission. Meaning after deserializing this thing, we expect to have what? An object of type permission on which it should have what? Two properties, and then also it should have all these methods, right? So that's why they call it permission. It's a variable called permission on which from this permission they will try to do what? To call this function. Meaning if however we provide a wrong object that doesn't have all these things, it will throw an error and then come at this point and then do what? Return what? Whatever object that we passed. I hope it makes sense. So at this point I feel like I've explained this thing enough. So now we're going to be moving to the next part, which is this part, our last file. Since I believe we checked all the files, so now we come to this file on which this file is called access log, on which it has an attribute, public attribute called log file, and then there's a constructor there on which you can provide the name of the file and then will be assigned to this thing, and then function to string on which this it calls this function called read log, on which is this function, and then what this function has, it has got this file underscore get contents on which it is in PHP it is used to read the content of the file. This is how PHP reads the content of the file, and then from there what it does is that it provides what? The name that has been provided here, meaning the name of the file. So that means if you provide a name of the file, by doing this thing, you'll return the content of the file, basically. And then you're gonna return it to this thing. And then to string is a function that is being called every time when you print or something like that, if it makes sense. So append to log, that means if however we provide any additional data, we're gonna add to the current file. And then we have another one, require once cookie, on which is this. This is the thing. Cookie.php. If the permission is set and permission is admin, meaning if however we do have an object of permission, and then we've discovered that this person who has a role of an admin within this system, then we're gonna do this thing of welcome admin and then new access. Okay, we're gonna create a new object of this thing and then provide the name of the file on which is what? Is access.log, right? And then from there we're gonna do some modification on which we said logged in at a specific time, meaning it's just when admin logs in, we have to update the time on which the admin has logged in. And then okay, else if this person is not an admin, we're just gonna say welcome guest. This is pretty simple. It should be easy to understand this thing. So now the question is, remember something. If we go back to the Pico thing, oh, don't tell me I closed that thing. Oh, I closed it. Okay, so I'm gonna have to go try to do that Pico thing. So it's under web. Okay, and then it's on, I think it's on. Okay, super serial. Okay, yeah, so if you remember on the hints, they said the flag is what? Is a step back, and then we have a file called flag, right? That means from the main directory, we have to go one step back and then access this thing. But as I've said on the description of the video, I said it's possible when we try to do listing of like going back, this thing will tell us access is denied. I'm gonna show you just now. So within the URL, we can do a traversal. A URL is mostly like a file structure. It's like a file basically, because even if you check your file, there's something like this on which this is the index. So you can create another folder called admin. It's more of like this, and then from then you can create another folder called hello, and then create a file inside. I mean, those are folders, and then create a file called index.php. So this is more of like a file structure, but in this case it's more from into the server side. So now they said the file is said what? one step back, and then the name of the file is flag. Meaning we can do that. We can just do something of like URL encode this thing, and then just put it there and see if we can access this thing. So I'm gonna copy this thing and then do something called URL encoder. Let's see if we can get it. Paste it here and then encode this thing. So once this thing has been coded, we can just copy this thing and then go back to, is it this one? Let me close this, it's pointless. Let me see this one. Okay, yeah. Now let me leave this one for now. Let me use this one. So here we are on the home. They said we have to do what? We have to go one step back, and then we should be able to access this file. So we're gonna post this thing by clicking enter. Let's see, forbidden. I'm not so sure if you can see this one. It says we are forbidden. We are not authorized basically to be able to access this content or go back one step back to the full structure. We are not supposed to do that. Meaning the question is, how do we get there? So it is actually pretty simple. We have managed to understand what the algorithm does, right? The code behind. Meaning, we saw that access log, it actually takes a file, and then when you say toString, it returns the content of the file here. So now the question becomes, what if we do something of this on which? So let's remember something that let me check, where is that part? There's a part on which, okay, yeah, here, let's remember here. So here what we do is that we check a cookie name. That means we have to create a cookie name, but instead of serializing this kind of an object, serialize this kind of an object. And then since it will throw an exception, since we don't have this thing, it will come here, and then this thing automatically will call toString of this class, meaning toString will run, will read the content of this thing. And then as a file name, we're gonna provide the path on which is what? On which is that path. I'm not so sure if I can access it from here. Is that Pico thing? On which is, come on. Why does this thing keep taking itself to another? Okay, on which is this path, right? Let me show you how to do this thing. So first of all, we have to follow the steps, right? So what this thing does at first, it does what? Okay, it will URL decode it, base 64 decode it, then unserialize. That means we just have to reverse this thing. So we need something. Okay, so I'll be using something called PHP sandbox. Which enables me to be able to write my own PHP code. So now we're gonna be going. Okay, so this is where we're gonna do this thing. So, but first of all, we have to know or remember how they serialize this thing. So if you go to the cookies, is it on the cookies? Yeah. So we're gonna have to reverse this thing. So meaning we're gonna. Okay, let me just. Okay, so now. So what they did was that let's create a variable. I can just create it. A variable called access. Access. On which the variable access will be. So first of all, what do? Okay. URL encode, right? And then from there we do a base64 encode, and then we serialize. Then let's try with the text and see what's gonna happen. So then now I'm just gonna say print. Okay, access. Okay, what's an error? Oh, I forgot to wait. URL encode. Let's see what's gonna be executed. Syntax print. Okay, what's happening? Okay, I forgot this thing. Semicolon. Let's execute this thing. So let's get this thing and then see what's gonna happen. So we're gonna post it. Basically, so we're gonna, for the fact that this code checks up for this thing, we're gonna create a code called login. So here on the name, we're just gonna provide login, provide the value that we get, save this thing, refresh the page, and then we get the text, on which is the same text that we wrote here. Right. So now what we're gonna do is that we're gonna create an object of type access, on which when we try to print this thing, as I've said, it will print what? It will read the file and print out the content. So we need to create a class called access underscore log, and then go and come here to the cookie, to this one. Yeah, we need this thing. Go back to the sandbox, provide this value, and then make sure that the value that is being assigned here is the location of the thing, which is flag. And then when we come here, we won't be serializing high, we'll be serializing an object of type what? Access log. Nice. And then let's run this thing. So this is our thing. So by posting this thing, you should be able to read the content of this thing. Where is it? So let's update this and then press enter, refresh the page. Okay, nothing will be uploaded. Reason being is that this page doesn't know anything about access log, right? That means an exception has been thrown. So we need to take that code. Since we have registered this cookie within this application, if we go to authentication, since authentication has access, for example, let me show you. So authentication has access class, meaning it knows what this thing is. So it should be able to do what? To give us this thing. So we're gonna go to, where is it? From here, we're just gonna go to not access but authentication. Authentication.php, on which image to read this thing, on which this is our flag. Then we can just copy this thing, come here, paste it here, and then submit the flag, and then that'll be it. So thank you guys for watching. See you in the next upcoming videos. Cheers.